This video has been brought to you thanks to the support of my patrons and YouTube members. Without them, this channel wouldn't exist. You can either join them as a YouTube member or through Patreon. There is a link in the description. You will get early access and a special role on my Discord server for those who decide to join. All of this is starting at $3 per month, and YouTube members have access to special emotes during my live streams on YouTube. The reality is I barely make ends meet and YouTube is my full-time job. It will mean a lot if we could reach 50 members on Patreon, as my cost keeps rising and YouTube revenue isn't exactly good. Having more patrons will allow me to present and produce bigger projects which might be impossible otherwise. So if you wish to own a growing YouTuber for the price of a cheeseburger, you can join me on www.patreon.com/yellowbeardit. With that said, I hope you enjoy the next video. Change is an inevitable part of life. All of us have experienced situations which changed us. We don't enjoy the same things as they fall out of favor. It's all part of discovering ourselves as we age and we try new things. And the same principle applies to the media we consume. One of my favorite examples lies with the Beatles. Please Please Me is completely different than Abbey Road. Dare I say, they sound so different and one might think they are products from a different band. A scenario which repeats with the Need for Speed franchise. I am not here to argue which game on this illustrious series is the best before this comment section turns into a worse battlefield than Stalingrad. I am here to bring you to a time where Need for Speed used to represent car culture better than anyone else, a time of constant evolution on this franchise, until Gran Turismo dared to challenge them. Pressured by competition, Electronic Arts created a perfect formula with Need for Speed high stakes. In order to present a fair competition, I will focus on the PlayStation releases of this franchise. These franchises used to be much closer during their early days, where Need for Speed flirted with simulation. If anything, their very first title was an attempt to recreate a realistic experience. In 1994, the first title of this franchise was released, The Need for Speed. You can tell it's a product of its time as you are bombarded with low-res video clips, which were all the rage back then. Even if these videos might be the product of their helping hand, you see, the developers of Need for Speed wanted to represent each car in the most accurate fashion, which is why they contacted Road and Track, one of the biggest car magazines in the market, and asked for their input regarding their efforts. Not only they provided accurate pictures so each car model could be recreated in detail, they also provided technical data on every car featured. If this wasn't enough, Road and Track had their editors play the early releases of Need for Speed and send their feedback to their developers. This link with the real world is evident on each car. Their interiors have been recreated quite well, and their body models are decent for its time. At the same time, each car has its own presentation, a technical breakdown where they are presented almost as real characters, a feature which will remain through future releases. Handling isn't exactly realistic, but it does feel good. Decent arcade physics which don't handicap the player. The AI can be quite brutal, however, as they are really competitive. Track design isn't bad really. It is grounded and they are idealized versions of realistic roads, along with circuits which might be a bit creative, but they still fall on the realm of believable. This is a video game after all, and that is probably the biggest shortcoming of the Need for Speed. As a video game, it doesn't have much to do. Sure, one can race in tournament mode to unlock a few extras, but that's all there is to it. The best way to describe this game is a joyride simulator, a game where you are given the keys to the hottest sport cars of the moment, are unable to enjoy them without much compromise, a formula taken to the extreme by Need for Speed 2 in 1997. While the first game is focused on the best sport cars of the moment, the following title focuses on limited production hypercars and prototypes. It's notable that the most common, in big quotation marks, car is a Lotus Esprit V8. What isn't common are viewers who leave a like on YouTube videos. You should change that by smashing the like button, and you can subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos and live streams. While this sequel is an evolution in some aspects when it comes to presentation and graphics, I find it's a big step backwards when it comes to actual gameplay. For one, car physics can be strange at times. Braking feels somewhat unstable, which means you might miss a few turns as they can be taken at full throttle. Cars are fast, sure, but they don't feel good to drive whatsoever, and I find the track design doesn't help. It does its best to handicap the driving experience. These tracks are full of complex corners which are easy to misjudge and will make your life miserable. I'm looking at you, Mystic Peaks. I suppose this wouldn't be an issue if the AI wasn't so quick and chaotic, because they will take off and push you around whenever they can. It doesn't really add any gameplay modes either. Their developers realized these changes weren't positive, as the third installment started to tone down the absurdity from Need for Speed 2. For one, track layouts were more grounded. They are 8 different circuits which have become iconic, from the simple yet fast hometown to the frozen nightmare that is the summit. These layouts work hand in hand with Need for Speed 3's handling physics, which have been tweaked. It is an improvement over the first game, even if they lean more towards the arcade spectrum. There aren't any moments where cars don't inspire confidence. You can tackle fast and slow corners without hesitation. Car choices are still packed with exotics. While I wouldn't call a 6-figure Diablo attainable, it is much better than a car which never left the prototype stages. There is some degree of progression tied to these cars, as tournaments don't allow you to pick the fastest cars from the get-go. The first races have to be done with lower tier cars, even if some may argue this is a rather arbitrary choice, without any sort of economy or justifiable reason to gatekeep these faster cars from the player. Outside tournaments, Knockout mode makes a return from Need for Speed 2 and it comes back with a vengeance. If you wish to unlock the best car in this game, one needs to complete Knockout mode in Expert difficulty, a game mode which randomizes track conditions for every single race. It is pure chaos and I have beaten it before. Ignore the god-awful thumbnail, the video is good. There is a link in the description. With Need for Speed 3, this franchise started to define its path and polish its presentation. A joyride simulator which is meant to be fun and works better with arcade physics, which allows players to experience an idealized version of their dream cars, driving them through beautiful open roads, almost as if you were taking them on a ride every single weekend, while racing with other owners of the exclusive cars. Sure, sometimes there might be a clash with the law, but it adds to the thrill and fantasy. At this time, Need for Speed was the best representation car enthusiasts had on mainstream video games, but then Gran Turismo was released on Western shores during 1998. It was a different way of representing the automotive world, a game which offered players the possibility of building their own career as a racing driver, starting from the bottom with a used car and getting different racing licenses in order to climb through the ladders, and complete with the fastest race cars. At the same time, one is expected to manage their economy, as each car has to be bought with your hard-earned money, or maybe buying a new car isn't the right option, and this money is better spent on modifying your current car. With a degree of technical details never seen in a racing game, Gran Turismo offers more than a facade, as its driving physics brought realistic concepts to the mainstream. Cars suffer from understeer, oversteer, body roll, and they handle differently based on their drivetrain layouts, weight, and size. These physics were paired with circuits which made perfect use of these driving techniques, but Gran Turismo had something else, an overwhelming amount of cars, from the ordinary to the absurd, cars which were unknown on this side of the world until then, a game which allows you to drive an Accord side by side with a Supra. This mix of absurdity with a realistic core was quite a success, and in all honesty, it made Need for Speed look dated, but competition breeds progress, and thus, in 1999, Need for Speed High Stakes was released. Strong statements usually require little words, if any at all. High Stakes starts with 2 cars on an empty road, ready to start a race. At our left, we got a modified, totally not a Honda Civic, while at our right, we got a Porsche 911 Turbo, and the Civic breaks down instantly, left behind by a pack of sport cars. No matter how much money you throw into your ordinary hatchback, they cannot compete with proper sport cars. Also, Need for Speed 4 wants you to believe. Past the flashy cinematic introduction, which, if you want to see recreated at proper quality, will be present in the description of this video, we are introduced to a cold industrial look, which is paired with a perfect electronic soundtrack. The work of Rom Di Prisco and Saki Kaskas was already brilliant on Need for Speed 3, defining the atmosphere of this game, but their work reached the masterpiece level for High Stakes. These menus will be engraved into your mind thanks to these soundtrack choices. They are easy to navigate, and there are a few racing modes to discover. There was a serious attempt at creating a career mode, while keeping its distance from Gran Turismo, but borrowing a few items from their formula. The classic tournament mode returns as the main core of this game's progression system, but this time it's much more than a set of races tied together. There are 6 different tournaments available. Each one of them is restricted to a specific group of cars which, unlike previous installments of this franchise, have to be bought. The economy of Need for Speed 4 is an aspect which deserves a mention, as it can be quite challenging to manage. Money isn't easy to come by unless you win every single race. You will have enough to fund your next car if this is the case, but collecting different cars requires a substantial amount of grinding. This isn't a friendly game towards car collectors, sadly. While its roster is much smaller than Gran Turismo's, there is enough cars to enjoy and appreciate. At the same time, these cars look stunning, probably some of the best models made for the PlayStation. They are detailed, clean, and have visible interiors. At the same time, they feature fully functional lighting. Even turn signals are functional. Do leave it in the comments if you know how to enable them. As always, our career starts with a complex choice. We have two cars to choose, the BMW Z3 or Mercedes-Benz SLK 230. They can become our first car in this journey. There aren't any second-hand cars to choose from. They're all shiny, new machines. Need for Speed still maintains its idealistic vision. You're supposed to drive the best cars in the market, and each showcase does its best to present their prowess. While both cars are capable in this first tournament, the Z3 has better long-term potential, and it looks better personally. These 2.8 Z3s are quite a find nowadays, if you can find a manual one that is. Worldwide Roadster Classics is a 3-race tournament, and the first circuit we will meet is Landstrasse, located in Germany. A neat detail of this game is the fact each circuit is located in a specific region of the world. Each track is stunning, there is no other way to describe them. They are detailed and full of character, and can be tackled under different conditions, such as rain, which does affect handling slightly, and nighttime. I find Need for Speed 4 has one of the best representations of night driving in a racing game. Everything is dark, it's hard to see, and the sky usually looks stunning. The usual forward or backwards layouts are also available, along with a cruel option called mirroring. As the name suggests, it lays the original circuit layout against a mirror, meaning a right turn will become a left turn. It gets quite tedious. These circuits are a blast to drive through. They feel exciting and challenging to master. They require practice in order to memorize each braking zone, each line, and it can be expensive to misjudge a turn. Not only because you might lose the race, but the fact these cars can be damaged. You heard that right. Every little bump can damage your car and its performance will suffer. They will struggle to accelerate and will look rather miserable, so you want to be clean. At the same time, if you win a race without crashing, you'll get a monetary reward, which is always nice. Truth be told, this first tournament is ridiculously easy because the AI are held back for some reason, meaning you'll beat them without breaking a sweat. Something to mention is the fact these races are 2 laps long, compared to the previous 4-lap races present in Need for Speed 3, which could become quite long at times. The next set of races showcase the differences between cars, as we have to drive muscle cars. Regional Club Circuit presents a showdown between the Camaro Z28 and Pontiac Firebird. However, I have a special treat for you all. Turns out Need for Speed 4 has different cars which were unfortunately region locked, meaning they were lost depending on your country of origin. Not anymore thanks to the Complete Edition project, a mod which aims to restore all of these cars and features some extra races where they can be used, which of course will be featured on the description of this video. For this race, it means we have access to the Ford Falcon XR8 and Holden HSP BT GTS, which is the one I bought. These cars do require a bit of patience. They can feel rather sluggish and heavy, and their size makes them difficult to drive at higher speeds. This is where Need for Speed 4's physics shine in my opinion, as each car feels somewhat different and requires some care in order to achieve a solid pace. It is normal to experience understeer if you are pushing too hard, and oversteer can be a problem at lower speeds. Make no mistake, while these concepts are a part of the experience, this is an arcade racer at heart. Oh yeah, back to tournaments. So far, these opponents shouldn't present a challenge, but they are a step above the Roadster tournament, meaning there isn't much room for error. This is also the first tournament where we get to see the formula they'll have, as every new tournament ends with a new circuit for the player. While it is much better for your finances if you place first on each tournament, new circuits will be unlocked if you place on the top 3. We'll leave these muscle cars behind as we climb another tier on the automotive ladder. Super Sedan Challenge has 2 different GTs in the shape of the Jaguar XJR and Aston Martin DB7, along with the only saloon featured in this class, the BMW M5, which is the undisputed king of this class. There are cases where cars are quite equal between each other, and some cases where one has a clear advantage over the rest. However, I am a big fan of the DB7 in this shade of green, which is why I always tend to pick this. By this point, opponents start to become more competitive and races become a bit more challenging, meaning one may have to start investing into upgrades to be competitive. The DB7 can feel front heavy and can be tricky to push, as it understeers in certain situations, which is why I couldn't help but invest in upgrades. There are 3 different stages and they improve handling, top speed and acceleration respectively. They modify the aesthetics of each car, and some might not like this, but I find they are tolerable. I only stalled the first stage upgrades on my DB7 as it will be overkill otherwise. My opponents managed to present a good battle through the following races. It is curious because the AI drivers in Need for Speed 4 have a specific character. You will always race against the same 5, with the player completing a grid of 6 racers. Each racer will behave in a different manner, but the most notable ones are Nemesis, who is the fastest and drives in a really clean manner, always trying to avoid contact with the player. He's often the most amusing to race against, but their clean driving style can be abused and taken advantage of. However, Bullet is willing to engage in contact and is quite fast, almost like Nemesis. This guy will always, and I mean always, take any opportunities to push you around. It can be infuriating to battle with them at times, but you will have to, so make sure to be prepared. The next tier brings an interesting flaw, as we have two cars to choose, the C5 Corvette and Ferrari 550. Yeah, it doesn't matter how you look at it, this matchup makes little sense. It's pretty bad because you could move the 550 to the next tier and have it race against the Diablo and Porsche 911, while bumping the F50, which for some reason shares class with these two, so it matches the McLaren F1 and CLK GTR as it should do. It's a shame they made this mistake, because there isn't a Ferrari which fills the gap before the 550 either. The complete edition adds a third car in the shape of the Nissan Skyline R34 GTR, a car which might be closer to the C5 Corvette. Truth be told, this car is a perfect showcase of the power of all-wheel drive in this game. They have excellent handling, always placing them amongst the best options one can take, so it makes no sense. Buy and experience the GTR for this championship. It took ages before we could have a taste of this car in the Western world, and that wait was worth it. And yes, adding all performance modifications gives it that underground look already, just so you don't miss your daily race portion. Otherwise, I will choose the C5 Corvette for the simple fact it has a one-make race, which gives you an interesting price, but we will talk about that later. This trio of cars does provide a substantial increase in performance compared to previous levels. They have both handling and speed. It's just a shame Grand Touring competition has such a weird lineup, probably the most disappointing tournament out of this career. After working through the ranks, we finally reached the stage where supercars face each other. International Supercar Series is a showdown between the Lamborghini Diablo, Porsche 911 Turbo, and previously mentioned Ferrari F50. The Ferrari and Diablo are faster, but their handling is a handicap, while the 911 has acceleration and handling, meaning it's friendlier to drive, which comes in handy given these races feature all sorts of weather conditions where the other two will struggle. The first race already takes place on a rainy circuit, and the final race of this tournament takes place at Snowy Ridge, a mountain circuit with snow-covered roads, to the point where one has to be careful at a certain corner because the road is deceptively covered with snow at the inside line. Yeah, you will spin here, remember me when you do. Truth be told, you might need to modify the 911 to have more consistent races. I managed to secure consistent victories with stage 3 alone. Adding them all is overkill, without a doubt. Honestly, there is a chance you might have to race this championship twice, as the next set of cars is quite expensive. There are the McLaren F1 GTR and Mercedes-Benz CLK GTR. You have climbed through the ranks and made it to the GT Racing Championship. These races take place in closed circuits where these GT1 machines will battle for first place. This is the peak of your career, and it does feel quite satisfying. It is safe to say these cars drive like a dream, and they are the best offerings presented in high stakes. There are 3 circuits which are quite fun, but they aren't as grounded as the previously featured open roads, fun enough. However, this doesn't make them unenjoyable, quite the opposite dare I say. Cars work quite well on these layouts, and there aren't any unexpected surprises, just be careful with jumps. By now these opponents provide really close racing, and it seems they struggle to control these cars, because all of them seem to have a shot at glory. They keep you on your toes and there isn't much room for error. At the same time, these races are longer than the previous ones, 4 laps instead of the usual 2. Once this tournament is completed, you will receive a secret car, the Phantom, an original Need for Speed design which looks quite cool. However, tournaments aren't the only races available. Beating tournaments in first place will unlock different races under special events. These races will provide a different challenge with unique conditions, such as one-make races, races with traffic which behaves in erratic fashion, move it at unexpected moments and providing a miserable racing experience overall. I am so glad it is limited to a few select events. Bonus points for the open road knockout tournament. Imagine being disqualified at the final lap thanks to a traffic car. This can be a bit more challenging, however they have better rewards as one-make races will usually give you a special car, which are pretty overpowered and look sick. All I have to do is showcase this Holden Commodore to you. Case closed. Now, it has to be said the complete edition adds a couple of events, both one-make races for the R34 GTR and Australian Ford Falcon and Holden Commodore. They also took the freedom to add an extra event for bonus cars, such as the Cup cars awarded by one-make events and original NFS creations, such as the previously mentioned Phantom. This is a brutal tournament which will drive you insane. Races are 4 laps long, driving the fastest cars in the game with traffic enabled. Safe to say, it will require a bit of patience to beat this tournament. Completing all the special events events will grant you a second, original Need for Speed creation, the Titan. I think the Phantom is nicer, but the Titan reminds me of a Hot Wheels diecast. It's amusing in its own right. While tournaments and special events are the main dish, Need for Speed offers an extra mode which is part of its soul. Hot Pursuit is a classic, a race on the open roads with police officers patrolling the area and chasing these racers who dare to break the speed limits. Yeah, that's us. We can either race against a single opponent or drive by ourselves. It is more fun as a race, however. It adds to the illegal aspect of it all. These officers will resort to pushing you off the road and deploying roadblocks in order to stop these antics. Once things escalate enough, they will start deploying spike strips and faster interceptors. Say, if you are driving a BMW Z3 and the ordinary patrols are BMW M5s, a 911 Turbo will appear to chase you as well. Truth be told, outside having some fun, there isn't much to this mode as a racer. The fun part comes while playing as a police officer chasing racers. They spawn individually. There's 10 racers to stop in a time limit. At first, this timer which appears on the top left corner of the screen might seem generous, until you realize you have to stop all 10 racers in this time period. After each racer is stopped, you recover some time, but these games become smaller and smaller after each stop, and they aren't generous to begin with. You really want to spend between 20 and 30 seconds at best on each racer, which is a bit sad because it doesn't give you enough time to play with the different support units at your service. You can call for backup, which brings a second patrol controlled by the AI, which can be kind of useful as it can arrest racers by itself, but you always miss out on the roadblock and spike strip features. I don't know how these work as they get rejected all the time. I think these are tied to a timer, which makes these features useless. There is a small progression in this mode. If you stop 10 racers, you will unlock a new patrol car. These change depending on the country you are racing in, which is a nice touch. Stop 10 racers again and you will unlock the almighty Diablo patrol car. If you manage to catch all the racers with the Diablo, you will unlock a helicopter. It can only be used in test drive mode and it doesn't even fly really. Back then, games were full of these absurd and fun details, which I can't help but laugh about. And if this section sounds familiar, it's because I stole it from myself. I did a video describing the evolution of police chases in Need for Speed before Most Wanted, which nobody watched. Ignore the god-awful thumbnail, the video is good. I really need to remake all of these thumbnails. All things considered, Need for Speed High Stakes is the perfect evolution of a formula which took years to refine. It didn't have to betray its principles to provide a different experience, which took a few cues from Gran Turismo, such as a progression system which took the player through the lowest tier sport cars to GT1 race cars, while managing their finances in order to progress. It doesn't aim to be a simulator, and it doesn't pretend otherwise, as it's purely focused on delivering an action-packed, idealistic image of each car present, allowing players to drive them at top speed through beautiful locations, while still requiring a degree of finesse which ensures players put some time and effort into mastering these machines. There are downsides? Sure, but I find them anecdotal at most. For one, the game mode which gives name to Need for Speed 4 High Stakes is relegated to a two-player affair, in which a second memory card is required. The idea was two different players will compete against each other, and the loser loses their car. However, this game mode was present in the PC's career mode, and yes, I know I said I wouldn't mention the PC releases as it would be unfair, but in this case, I wish they managed to integrate said game mode to the main career, given the entire game is named after it. While Gran Turismo provided a more technical experience, this is something Need for Speed will challenge and beat in some aspects, with their next title, Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed, the first racing game I ever played, and one which I already covered in this channel. The link will be in the description. It is safe to say, both Need for Speed and Gran Turismo created a school of car enthusiasts. Both were products which shaped our current car culture, and above all, they used to be fun. And that's all it matters in the long run. I want to thank Asriel who has helped me to polish this script, and the link to his YouTube channel will be present in the description of this video. It is time to thank my supporters who make this possible. This channel wouldn't exist without them. First of all, I want to thank two YouTube members who have gifted a lot of memberships this month, Blaine Devlin and Julian Canoto 15. These two are responsible for the massive amount of members we have gotten this month. People like them make these YouTube endeavors of mine possible, so I must thank them. And my supporters at Patreon, we thank them as follows: Or Amateur Racers, Professional Racers, and World Champions: Blind Dev, See What Happens Racing UK, Whiskey Tuesday, Sundari Kiseli, Enzo Lacioneri, Raciel, Hunter Kaufman, Josh Pig, Lonnie Murray, Tyscom, and Aspriel. If you want to join these wonderful people, you can do so by clicking the link to my Patreon present in the description of this video. You will get early access to my videos along with a special role on my Discord server. Each one of them makes a massive difference, and more supporters will allow me to improve these videos and bring other sorts of content as well. With that said, I hope you have enjoyed this video and left a like if you did or a dislike if you didn't. I hope to see you soon on my live streams or future videos. Take care and bye for now.